is going down, sour no squad? How are we doing today on this beautiful Friday? Woo-hoo-hoo, baby, this is the weekend. Let's go. And not only is it the weekend, but on the other side of the weekend is OTAs. You smell that? Oh, that's the smell of football around the corner. How are you guys doing today? Drop an SDS if you're vibing with your boy. Smash that like button if you haven't already. We got some good stuff to talk about today. Not only are we going to do a way too early prediction of the starting offensive line, but we're going to start to peel it apart, and we're going to start to pick it. This is a numbers game, baby. There are a lot of offensive linemen on this team. I got a little bit of anxiety trying to put this together because I'm like, how are we going to do this? But we're going to go through it. We're going to talk about all the names. We're going to get through multiple ranges of outcomes for potential starting offensive lines. We're going to get kind of deep into that a little bit further. But we also got some other things to talk about. George Kittle is the tight end U is back. I'm hyped about that. And it sounds like they're taking it to new heights. There's going to be more. There's some Trey Lance information coming out of from George Kittle. So we'll get into that a little bit further. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. I'm pretty excited about it. Pretty excited about it. Someone had asked, where did it go? Someone asked about the steak. Oh my goodness. The steak last night. I just have to talk. Oh my goodness. It was fantastic. Let me tell you. Like, I'll see if I can pull up a picture just to show you. But I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And it was at the Steakhouse in San Francisco. It's this really nice place. I mean, look at that, man. It was so good. Premium 18-ounce bone-in ribeye. Whoo! Your boy was happy last night. Your boy was happy. We were feasting last night. I was in heaven. It was beautiful. But again, shout out to everyone who sent good vibes my way yesterday. Really did appreciate it. But this was on another level. It was one of those restaurants where it was almost so nice where I kind of felt uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. This is really nice, but it was a fun experience. I really enjoyed it, and the steak was phenomenal. It really was. Justin says, Brad, I've got my tinfoil hat on. The Jordan Mason's IG story paired with the 49ers Twitter account dropping more pics of Mason than TDP from minicamp. Does it mean anything? Curious on your thoughts. And I love this. And shout out for the super chat, Justin. I appreciate you, my boy. Justin, like I'm telling you, man, if Jordan Mason turns into someone on the San Francisco 49ers and he becomes a player that not only makes the roster but has an impact, we got to give this man his flowers. He was on it from the jump. The second the San Francisco 49ers added Jordan Mason as an undrafted free agent, Justin is in love. And we love that. Draft crush season is still here. But I also do think you have some valid points. Now, I think what Justin is talking about are if you go to the 49ers website, let me see if I could even pull it up and we can kind of walk through it together about what he's talking about in regards to the pictures that have been released from rookie minicamp. So the 49ers, they will release images from games, minicamp, their app, their website is a great source to be able to get photos and things like that. So the 49ers always do a really good job of taking care of us by providing us with these types of images and things like that. Of course, we have Drake Jackson here. We got Brock Purdy. We got Zakel. We got Leon O'Neal Jr. We got Quantrez Knight. We got Ty Davis Price. We've got Marcelino, McCray Ball. I mean, that's a name right there. Jason Poe. We've got Tariq Castro Fields wearing number 36. We got Kevin Akins. Let's see. Oh, we've got Donovan West, 61. More Drake Jackson. Schluter. We've got Tay Martin wearing that 49. Brock Purdy. Samuel Womack, fifth round pick. More Donovan West. More Zakel. More Tay Martin. Oh, but there he is. And I'm going to be 100% honest with this situation, especially for you, Justin. I don't know how to explain it. Like I get vibes from guy. Like it's weird. Like I don't like I can see just a photo of someone and I'm like I can tell that that person's a player and again, I don't know what it means. I'm not saying it translates to anything, but Jordan Mason looks the part. Like, and I get this vibe from him. Like, he does feel like he could be a special player for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, if you go back and you watch the tape of him at Georgia Tech, you see his ability to not only run, but catch out of the backfield, be a threat as a wide receiver. Again, we've talked about on this channel many times the San Francisco 49ers potentially looking to upgrade that running back three kind of third down back. And obviously, they take Ty Davis Price. Uh, but Jordan Mason, I mean, just looking at him, understanding kind of where he's coming from Georgia Tech, it feels like he has a shot at making this roster. And his best path to making this roster will be with not only special teams, but if he can prove that he can be a good pass blocker, he can be a threat as a receiver out of the backfield, which the 49ers, again, early reports out of camp are TDP doesn't look like he has natural hands in that particular regard. So Jordan Mason, man, he could be a player for us. And I won't be surprised if he is. Um, Again, you look at him just from a size comparison. We looked at it, I think, last week or the week before with him kind of right next to TDP. And you're like, he looks a little bigger than TDP, but we already understand that Jordan Mason has the athletic traits to be able to be shifty, to be able to be kind of that change of pace back, but he's big. Um, so what he's talking about with Jordan Mason's IG is a family member or someone close to him posted that they had already bought tickets to an October game. And he's just like, and I think what Justin's saying is like, oh, he's already made the roster. They're already buying tickets for October games. We'll find out, but I really do think, and again, here's Jordan Mason again. I really do think that he does have a shot at making this roster. And not only that, I like him in 41. I feel like the 41 suits him well. Again, he's a bigger back, but I don't know why. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I like 41. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't like 41 on running backs, but on him, I'm like, I see it. Like, I don't know. I just get this vibe from him. And here's Spencer Burford right here. There's a ton of Donovan West, another Schluter, more Quantrez Knight. So these were posted on the San Francisco 49ers website and or app. I recommend to all of you to go and either download their app or whenever practices, events, whatever, games, they post a ton of photos to either the website or the app. That's a great source of being able to get more 49ers stuff directly from the 49ers. But hey, if Jordan Mason is I just can't wait to get to camp, man. I can't wait to start evaluating. I can't wait to, take the tinfoil hat off. I can't wait to like just move past the off season and get my eyes on football players doing football drills, doing all these different types of things on a football field and evaluating from a football lens. I just cannot wait for that. I cannot wait till we're around football again and we can start making these more definitive uh I guess evaluations on these players. Right now we're theorizing in a sense. Like we're trying to take their college tape, we're trying to evaluate the college tape, and then we're trying to fit it into what we know and think Kyle is going to do or what he would potentially do with these specific players inside his offense. So I'm really excited, man. I'm really excited to get some football all that kind of stuff. I really, really am. Um, Cash the God says, when does camp start? Monday. We got OTAs start on Monday. So I'm excited. Again, it's for us, like I'm not going to be there, so I won't be able to report back on like what we're seeing and things like that, other than what the San Francisco 49ers are providing us, which, it is what it is. But we're close, baby. We are absolutely close. Shout out to the homie from Germany. Appreciate you, man. Really, really do. Appreciate everyone, dude. Yesterday was is crazy overwhelming with all the love that you guys showered on me. I really do appreciate it. Again, just have to thank you guys as always for the support that you guys show me. It means so much. Big Papa says, "Hey Brad, thanks for the Kittle interviews earlier today. Bring some sanity to an off season." And if you haven't watched the Kittle interviews, I mean, I say this all the time, dude. Like, I could listen to George Kittle talk about football. Like, when George, like, he's really good and he's really like media trained. So if you ask him a question about Deebo Samuel, about Trey Lance, about Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to answer it in the right way. He's not going to say anything where you can really take anything out like, oh wow, George said this or George said that. George is a savant. George is savvy. He knows 100% how to work around those questions. But when he starts talking about football, when you start asking him football specific questions, I just love listening to him speak about the sport. I love his mentality. Again, the way he attacks the game, the way he attacks his preparation, the way he views and evaluates. I mean, and the way he speaks about it. Like he's not speaking about it like you can't even understand what he's saying because he's using all these complex terms. He just knows football and can translate and communicate what like these complex schemes and things and whatever they're trying to do, he can just distill it down and it makes it so enjoyable to listen to. So if you haven't already, Pat McAfee, George Kittle was on Pat McAfee earlier. He went on Rich Eisen. Obviously, they're going to ask him the hot button questions about Deebo Samuel, Trey Lance, and things like that. But my favorite part of what George Kittle talked about was Trent Williams. When they asked him the Trent Williams question, George Kittle said Trent Williams is the best football player in the NFL, and it's not even close. And I'm just like, man, see this is why I love this guy. Like not that like I agree with him, and you guys know me. I've been banging the table for a solid over 365 days that Trent Williams is the best football player like in the entire game. Like again, we made the joke I think it was last week about the rankings and like how the rankings that PFF dropped didn't even like I'm like looking at the rankings and I'm like the fact that there's a name like right under him, it just doesn't do it justice because Trent Williams is a freaking unicorn. And to reference, this is what I was talking about, and we had some fun with it. But essentially, this was the ranking. Again, you see Trent Williams, he's right there. He's number one, so there's nothing wrong with that. And you have number two, David Bakhtiari, who again missed last year with injury, but going into last year before he got hurt, a lot of people would try to argue with you to tell you Bakhtiari was better than Trent Williams. And I'm just like, you guys are crazy. Like, yeah, Bakhtiari's good, but he is not Trent Williams. Then you got, Tristan Wirfs, and the list goes on and on. But the joke that we had was like, I'm going to bippity boppity boop. And the list is now correct. So, like, this is what the list should look like. I feel confident with this list. Trent Williams is a freaking unicorn, and he can't be spoken about like an average person. Like, and that's what I just keep coming back to that. I keep coming back to we don't put enough respect on Trent Williams. Like again, like he should be like being talked about right now amongst the entire NFL community as the best player and he's not. And it's a shame. But again, I will continue to do what I have to do to make sure it is known that Trent Williams is the best freaking football player on the planet. And you heard that from Joe, and you heard that from freaking George Kittle. And you could argue he is like probably top five, top 10 if you really want to argue about it in the NFL. So I love it, man. Trent Williams, again, George Kittle. Anytime he talks about football, my ears perk up, and I'm going to listen to what he has to say. And again, he talked about Deebo. He talked about Trey Lance, and again, the news that came from uh, that particular interview with Pat McAfee. I can even show it because I got it right over here. Uh, Kittle informed us that the tight end U is underway. Again, trailblazer for the tight end position. And not only are they going to have like 75 tight ends at tight end U, they are going to have quarterbacks. And who are those quarterbacks going to be? CJ Beathard, 49ers legend, Nick Mullins, BDN, 49ers legend, and Trey Lance. Ooh, okay. Okay. And I love this, okay, because obviously there's more people coming out to it almost feels like to attack Trey Lance. And I think that's what we're seeing on Twitter and just the constant back and forth is it just feels like there's this energy of attacking Trey Lance or trying to preface his issues in a negative light rather than taking those same exact issues and looking at it from an optimistic standpoint because I don't think we would all necessarily disagree with the potential concerns that we have for Trey Lance, but there are some people that are weaponizing it, and then there's going to be an other group that's going to be optimistic about it. So it is refreshing to hear George, not only to hear what George had to say about Trey, and of course being a rookie and learning and being in the he admitted it was an awkward situation last year, which we all know, we knew going into it was going to be awkward, and so. But again, him just bringing some clarity, just giving some perspective from someone who's like, again, he's standing right next to the guy. So It's just nice. It's just nice to hear, and it's nice to know that Trey Lance will be a part of tight end U. He will be throwing to all these tight ends. Again, that's a great experience for a young quarterback to be able to go to be around guys like Tony Gonzalez, legends of the tight end position, 75 NFL tight end prospects, and be able to go out there and drill and throw. And guess what? He's going to be able to interact and talk and gain lessons and like talk to all these other tight ends, and they're going to be like, well, this is what we're looking for in this particular play. When we hit this route with this timing, this is what we're trying to accomplish. When you see this little underneath linebacker, this is how we're trying to manipulate him and either cut under or get around, or we're going to break off our route, go outside. Like those, that's it. That's valuable. And he's not just having to learn it from guys on his roster. He's going to go be around a bunch of other quarterbacks. And great point by Niner by Nature is right now, it's not confirmed, but Kittle is efforting Josh Allen to come out. So he's efforting Josh Allen to come out, but again, another opportunity for Trey Lance to be a sponge, to absorb information, and just gain the experience. That's all we need. And again, Kittle said it perfectly. He just needs reps. Just give him freaking reps. That's what he needs. Reps. He needs to do it. Again, we can talk all we want. He just needs to do it. Then when he does it, then let's provide our critiques. Then let's say, okay, after a full season, this is our takeaway. Like, just give him the freaking reps, man. Just give him the reps. Just give him the dang reps, please. But again, George, phenomenal today. Again, great teammate, dude. Just a great teammate. We all know George is such great friends with Jimmy Garoppolo, has the utmost respect for Jimmy Garoppolo, but he understands this is a business. He understands the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, are likely not going to move forward. He understands the perception, he understands the narratives, he understands the leadership that he can bring by saying what he says and how he can calm some of the just like, "Ugh," like we don't know and we're so nervous, and then we just hear all these talking heads just like taking a dump on the kid, and it's like that's why Kittle's a smart man. He just knows. He knows, like, he's still amazingly good friends with Jimmy Garoppolo, and probably wants Jimmy Garoppolo around, but he also understands this is a business. He understands what's at stake, and he knows what he needs to do. That I can't wait. I cannot wait for George Kittle to get into content creation. I can't wait. I know it's coming. He's already got the podcast that he does with his sister and his dad, Hidden Pearls podcast. Like, I can't wait. George is going to be a content gem when it comes to his like transitioning, like how we see Richard Sherman and think, oh no, Kittle is going to, I think, take that and go to it. Like he's going to be like a Pat McAfee. I swear. That's what I see. That's what I see for Kittle. That's what I see for his future beyond football. He's going to be like the Pat McAfee. I think he's going to transition like that. So again, I can listen to this guy talk about football all day. Really, 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 really excited to hear from him and all this stuff. So that was nice. What else happened today? Anything else really happened? No, it's pretty much it. Again, OTA start soon, but let's talk some old line, shall we? Shall we talk some offensive line? Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready to get into the meat of some of this? And talk about starting offensive line potentially, maybe a little too early, a little bit too early offensive line, but let's talk about it. And before we get into it, though, because we're going to dive in, we're going to, again, way too early starters, but we're going to have a range of outcome of starting offensive lines because we're going to have to do it with Mac and without Mac because we just don't know. And all those types of things. So as we get into this, do me a favor, smash that like button if you haven't already. Let's at least get to 100 today. I think that's a reasonable like goal. I saw DJ jump into the chat earlier. Shout out DJ, chat legend. Said he had to do some work, uh, but appreciate DJ. Been missing DJ. I've actually been looking for DJ in the chat recently, but he did say he does have to work. So shout out DJ. Shout out the mods. Hey, again, another shout out to the mods. Uh, Mod squad has been legendary. Mods again, I have to just shout out the mods. Shout out, shout out you guys. We live in a divisive time. We live in a time where not everyone is open to having conversation or uh just normal debate. Like we don't have to agree on anything, but everyone gets so in their feelings in 2022 about disagreeing with something. So again, the mod squad has been fantastic. Again, you guys make my life easier. Just again, maintaining the vibes. We see you. We shout you out. Appreciate all you guys, and of course, the rest of the SDS always, the vibes, undefeated around here. Um, but anyways, let's talk offensive line. Let's talk offensive line. The thing with the 49ers offensive line, that's wild. Let me count. Let me do a count really quick. Let me do a count of how many offensive linemen are on this roster right now. Right now, we have one. I'll read them. We got uh for take it for what it's worth. Take it for what it's worth. Again, we don't know what's going on with Alex Mack. We don't know, but he's still on the roster. He's still listed there. He's still he's right over there. He's still listed. We have no announcement. So Monday's the day. Like it has to be. It has to be the day, like where we find out. Uh at least in some sense. I mean, maybe I think there is a range of outcome where the 49ers could go through OTAs, through mandatory minicamp with no Alex Mack, and he could still come back, decide for training camp to come back because he's a veteran. He doesn't need to be in OTAs and minicamp other than to gain more of a continuity with this new quarterback and Trey Lance. I mean, that's a benefit. That's definitely a benefit. But he doesn't have to. He's a veteran. He could miss those activities and still be fine for training camp, but he's still on the roster. We have no retirement. We just really have no movement. So we are going to do a couple of these again with Mac, without Mac, trying to do our best. Again, a little bit way too early, starting offensive line predictions, but we are going to do our best. But I'm going to count through. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I currently have 15 offensive linemen. They typically keep 7. So there is more than half that aren't going to make the roster. And when you look at some of these guys and you look at now 2 years worth of drafting 2 offensive linemen, in decently high rounds. There are going to be guys that are going to be cut that were drafted high. There are going to be guys that were cut that like are legit veterans. Like this is going to be intense. This camp battle is going to be intense. Again, so just going through the centers, at least of what I have Alex Mack, again, TBD. We don't know. We're going to find out. Shout out Luke. Appreciate you, Luke. Good to see you around here. Chat legend, Luke Luna. He's probably tattooing someone right now. But for centers, we got Alex Mack, we got Donovan West, we got Jake Brendel. We cannot forget about Jake Brendel. I think it's really easy to forget about Jake Brendel, but let's be honest. Like I was very high on the third string center last year, Dakota Shepley. He was a developmental prospect coming from the Canadian League. He was someone that I thought had high upside, but he needed time to develop. Um, I interviewed Dakota Shepley last year, and at training camp, he performed at a high level, and I was expecting Shepley to win the backup center position, but I figured it out. They were trying to stash him on the practice squad. They weren't giving him second team reps. He was just solidified with the third team. They weren't trying to give him second team reps, and I really feel that they released him to bring him back on the practice squad. But Seattle knew. They watched the tape. They again, you watch him in the preseason. He was doing very well. He was dominating. Again, I thought he should have been the second string, but it felt like they were trying to sneak him onto the practice squad, and it backfired. Seattle swooped him, added him to the active roster, re-signed him this year. So Dakota Shepley's on the active roster for Seattle. There's an example of losing depth that became a member of a 53-man roster when it came down to cut day. So, but Jake Brendel, say what you want, he still managed to hold that position. So we can't forget about Jake Brendel. Of course, we've got Poe, a rookie. I have Zakel right now kind of slotted in as a center. So right now, if I call those my centers, those are five centers. That's five centers, five centers. Then we go to guards. And this is how I'm looking at guards. And again, we have multiple tackles that are guard hybrids. So we have multiple offensive tackle, offensive guard hybrids. But I'm calling these guys guards right now. Brunskill, calling Brunskill. But again, Brunskill is a hybrid that could either play tackle or center. Um, Aaron Banks, guard. New developments. Jalen Moore, guard. Again, listening, I really don't listen to a ton of podcasts. I just really don't. Um, and I just every once in a while I'll hop into one, and I hopped into Matt Mayoko's uh I hopped into Matt Mayoko's podcast, 49ers Talk, I think through NBC Bay Area. And he just like nonchalantly and again, I don't know if it was discussed on like previous like shows or episodes or anything like that, but he said Jalen Moore is a guard, and I was like, oh, because I've been adamant about like don't put him at guard. I don't see that being a fit for him. Just because I think he's a little light in the run game and he's more of a natural pass blocker in regards to having a natural kick step and natural pass blocking technique. So I'm like I'd rather just keep developing him as a tackle and taking what he's good at, making him elite at what he's already good at. And then we can still teach him how to run block a little bit better. He struggles with run fits at times. So I found that interesting. So now I'm penciling him as a guard. Jalen Moore, come on down. You're a guard now. So that is going to be an interesting evolution for his game. And again, another thing that I'm very looking forward to at camp. Again, I would advise against it. Again, that's watching him all throughout training camp. He was the left tackle all preseason for every preseason game because Trent Williams didn't play. He started an entire game at left tackle against the Colts. He got benched at right tackle against the Jags, and then we never saw him again. So It's going to be very interesting to see how his development goes because we would probably say, based on last year, that Jayla Moore performed better than Aaron Banks, at least from camp, and then obviously got opportunities into the year. But he took steps back as the year progressed. And, take it with a grain of salt. He's a rookie. Playing offensive line is very difficult. But like I said, Mayoko called him a guard. So, it wasn't like a slip of a tongue. It was like they moved him to guard. And okay. All right. They also have a guy named Sutherland that they picked up who was cut, I believe, from the Bengals this offseason. They just added him. Uh, so he's probably going to be an expendable guy, potential, you know, practice squad guy. So right there, just on with interior guys, and again, that's not including the tackles that are position kind of a position hybrid. Just interior, we have 9 guys for 3 spots. That's a lot. 9 guys for 3 spots. That it again. I will if I had the opportunity. I would be banging the table for football NFL teams to carry a full set of second string offensive linemen. I think it's ludicrous. I think it is absolutely ludicrous that you have 5 starting offensive linemen and you have 2 backups. And those 5 starting offensive linemen don't rotate. This isn't the defensive line where you have 10 guys on your roster and you can just, oh, he's tired, rotate him out. These offensive linemen don't get out. They stay in. And they're going up against fresh dude, like fresh defensive linemen, fresh waves of D line. Like there has to be a place eventually for 5 starters, 5 backups. How else do you expect to truly develop the trenches? Like, come on. But that's a topic for another day. But anyways, moving on to the tackles, we understand Trent Williams. He's clearly a lock. Mike McGlinchey, from all accounts, is getting healthy and playing well. So I imagine those two are going to be locks. But this is where it gets interesting. Colton McKivitz, again, you point to week 18, him having to fill in for Trent Williams against 2 of the best pass rushers from last year, Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, and held his ground. So, and he is a positionless kind of player where I would slot him as a guard before and primarily a guard. But the fact that he was able to hold his own at left tackle against 2 of the top level pass rushers in a must win game, that makes Colton McKivitz extremely valuable, in my opinion. So that is going to be another interesting wrinkle to who actually makes those 7 to 8 spots on the active roster. But then you also have Justin School. If you guys remember, 2019, Justin School played. He spot started a couple times. He had to come in a couple times, and he helped contribute to victories in 2019. But he's been healthy. I've talked to his trainer. Um, his trainer sent me a bunch of videos of School just lifting like insane amounts of weight. He looks healthy coming back from the ACL. Everything that I've heard about School from a mindset standpoint, from a just a physical health standpoint, he is headed in the right direction. So School could come back and theoretically be a player that becomes another, like, dang, like what do we do with School? Like if we cut him and he goes to the practice squad, or we think he's going to go to the practice squad, is someone going to swoop him? Like, so again, we, this is a good problem to have at the end of the day, and I have to emphasize that it is a good problem to have this many offensive linemen, like especially with Again, the continued depth issues that we've seen pop up here or there. But you also have Gutierrez. Don't forget the monster Gutierrez. Dude is huge. Definitely the biggest offensive lineman that we have. Alfredo Gutierrez, and then Sam Schluter, undrafted free agent. So you can see, like, we have a lot of guys. Like, it's a good problem to have, but we got a lot of offensive linemen. So how do we try to distill this into starters? So what I'm trying to do, and this was very hard, is I distilled it down to 8 keepers. And then through the 8 keepers, then we build out the offensive line. I also have practice squad guys. So it's going like, I'm not lying. It's giving me anxiety. Like, I do not fault, or like, you know, when it comes to cut day, like, that would be so hard for me because I would want to keep everyone. I'd want to somehow figure out, like, we can't let this guy go. Like, we just need a year or two more of development and he could be a legitimate guy. Like, I would have a real hard time cutting these guys. But again, I have it as an 8-man keeper list, and I'm keeping it at 8 because I think the 49ers will keep 7, but I'm throwing Alex Mack into the keeper pile, and so that's why I'm going from 7 to 8 keepers, and these are the keepers that I have so far, and you can tell me if you like it, you can tell me if you hate it, and you can tell me if I'm missing someone, but again, I'm going to be missing someone because it was really freaking hard. But of course, let's go left to right. um and this is pretty much what I would imagine also the starting offensive line would be if Alex Mack is playing. So this is what it would be, and this is going to start off our first 5 keepers. It would be Trent Williams at left tackle. Right now, right now, right now, on paper, Aaron Banks at left guard. I don't love it. I don't feel ultra confident in it because I still need to see. I need to get out there. I need to see with these eyeballs before I feel comfortable. But again, you're taken in the second round. You look at the draft capital. He is, outside of Trent Williams, outside of Alex Mack, outside of McGlinchey, he is the highest drafted offensive lineman that we have. And again, we have 15 right now. So that means he is slotted at number 4 as the 4th highest drafted offensive lineman on this squad. So there's money involved with that. So that, I think, feels like he will be here. We're going to find out if he can win the job. I think it's a true competition. And I think ultimately when they get through the competition, they're going to keep who they want to play. If they just, they bring in all these waves of young guys and talent, and for whatever reason Aaron Banks isn't able to overtake them, I don't think it's beyond them to, like, just move on, but it also is kind of early too in that sense. But again, I think the money would tie him here. So I got Trent, Banks, Mack, Brunskill, McGlinchey. So effectively the same offensive line as last year. You're just, again, kind of the way we theorized this starting last year. Again, I always felt that it was going to be very difficult to keep Laken Tomlinson. And as we saw, he got paid a lot of money. So, as that particular result, we always theorized Aaron Banks kind of taking over that left guard spot. Even though they had him at right guard, I think they felt like he could push Brunskill out of the job. But again, just like I talked about watching camp last year, it was crystal clear from day one that Brunskill was not losing his job to Aaron Banks. Like, it just, and you guys know I'm heavy Brunskill bias, but objectively scouting and evaluating the like levels of where Aaron Banks was to where Brunskill, it was night and day. You saw one guy who's a rookie, and you saw one guy who's a veteran who's been doing it, knows what he's doing, and the difference was in like you could see it. And it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even like, oh well, Aaron Banks is pushing. Like no, it was like just there's no shot. There was literally no shot, um, based on what I was watching. So, but you drafted him in the second round. You're giving him a probably pretty decent payday based on that. You got to see what he has. You got to see if he can grow and develop to what you had drafted him to be. So there are five right there. Uh, so again, with the same concept though of drafted players, and again looking at the money, I think Burford makes it a fourth round draft pick. I believe he becomes Burford. We talked about Banks being the fourth highest drafted offensive line. I think now, I think now Burford becomes the fifth highest drafted offensive lineman out of this whole group. So, in that same light, you don't just cut fourth rounders. Like, that's just not how it works. So, feels like Burford is a lock. But that puts guys like Jalen Moore on notice. That put guys like Colton McKivitz, Justin School, uh, Brendel. Like, again, we're running out of spots. That's six. That is six guys right there. Again, typically carry seven, but for this exercise, we're carrying eight. Do you see how difficult this is? Like, I love Zakel. I love West. I think Brendel has opportunity. I think Moore has potential. I think Colton McKivitz could be a borderline starter. Like, and on the interior, if you needed him, Justin School could bounce. So like we're getting to that point where it's like this is really hard to kind of see on paper at this point because again, Zakel was drafted as well, 6th round draft pick. Feels like Zakel could be a guy who makes the roster. That would make seven just right there. That's no Donovan West. That's no Colton McKivitz. That's Jalen Moore getting cut. So you can already kind of see that's no Jake Brendel either. So that's why this quarterback or offensive line competition that's going to start in OTAs and then continue to evolve into mandatory minicamp and then into training camp is going to be fierce. It's going to be one of the most I think it's gonna be one of the top position battles of the entire training camp because, again, the intrigue around Alex Mack, what's happening with Alan Max, but there is a huge hole at left guard regardless. We know there's a hole at left guard. We know that exists, and we're about this close to knowing if there's going to be a hole at center or if there's not. And right now, there's so many numbers. We just have so many numbers at this moment. So there are going to be guys like again Colton McKivitz. He was a surprise last year that he got cut. Talking to guys on the team that were surprised. They weren't expecting that. They weren't expecting Colton to get cut. That came as a surprise to them. So if a guy like Colton, and it might not be a huge, like, feel like a surprise to fans, but inside that locker room, it was a surprise that Colton got cut. So there could be a guy like Jalen Moore that could get cut. There could be a guy like Brendel who gets cut. There could be a guy like, and again, Banks he isn't solidified there. I haven't seen anything to be like he's solidified. I think he can be. If you go back to his tape at Notre Dame, he was pretty dominant at Notre Dame. And I had pretty high expectations for him. And I don't know if that hurt like my evaluation because I had such high expectation, but we're going to find out. Uh so I think unfortunately Alfredo will be will be on the practice squad for a minimum one more year. And I tried to tell people, and again, he's huge. He looks like he could be a really good tackle, but he's so just raw, just so raw. Um, and I'll tell you about his training camp, right? I was at training camp. I watched everything. I logged everything. Uh, Alfredo played three team three team period snaps for the entirety of training camp. Two of them were penalties. One of them was a false start, and they took him out, so he didn't even get the rep. So figuratively, he got 2 reps, and then one was a hold, so he got 1 real rep all of training camp, and that is very difficult. That's why I've always prefaced, like, the one of the biggest things that I learned last year of covering my first, training camp is, oh man, you better be ready to play as an offensive lineman. Like, you better be ready, because if you are not ready, you do not get the reps. If you are not a starter, if you're not a second stringer, if you are a fringe third stringer slash developmental guy, you are not getting team reps. And if you are, they are very few and in between. And as an offensive lineman, you need to stack reps. You need to be able to get comfortable. You need to feel like I can go out and run 5 to 10 plays and stack up this Rolodex of experience. And when you're getting one shot, like every 3 or 4 practices, that's difficult. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways from last year's training camp is you get I think 1 week of padded practice before before you start preparing for preseason. I talk about this all the time too with offensive line. You can do as many reps as you want with no pads and just helmets, like, but there is something that is completely different about playing the position. You have to have full pads. Like, you have to be able to hit. You have to be able to grab pads. You have to be able to use leverage. You can do those things. You can do 1v1s and you can do team drills with no pads, but my God, it's harder to make that translate to padded periods. So that's one of the things that I noticed, is that it's just very hard to develop in that sense. Now, Alfredo was on the practice squad. What's the beauty of the practice squad? He got to practice all year. And what's the beauty of being on the practice squad? You're going up against the starters. That's where you gain the reps. Training camp, if you're trying to develop in training camp, that's difficult. That's very difficult. I wouldn't want that, especially like if I knew I needed to work on some stuff. Training camp is trying to prove that you're good enough to make the roster, and you get very limited opportunities. So I imagine he could have developed and learned a ton more on the practice squad. But we're going to find out next year. And so it's what's nice though is I have a baseline now for how these guys operated in training camp last year. So again, I still have all my notes. I got all my notes like right here. All my notes right here. Terrible handwriting. Oh, look at this. First one on the top. Dime from Sudfeld. Wake up, honey. Sudfeld darts. Dropped it in the bucket. Dropped by dropped by Travis Benjamin. Oh, also funny. George Kittle talked about Sudfeld darts today too. Sudfeld darts is a real thing, guys. It's a real thing. We're not lying. We're not lying when we say Sudfeld darts is a real thing. Sudfeld darts are a real thing. And I love that George talked about it. He said, what did he say? He said, "Oh, like Sudfeld, like he got a nice little like whip on him." I was like, "See, Sudfeld darts, baby." Uh, let me see. Do I have any O line notes that I could literally just pull? Uh, it's gonna take a long time to get through it to actually pull anything of value. But again, I feel like I have a really strong baseline. I feel like I have a very strong baseline of who these guys were last year and what they're going to be able to develop into this year. So I'm excited to see the development again. And I'm already looking at my notes. I've got like Mo Hurst was balling last year, balling. Again, we didn't really get to see him because he got hurt, but in training camp, Mo Hurst was balling out. He was. I see. Got Toss Mack, Toss Brunskill. Um, it's pretty. I forgot about Mo. Mo was going crazy. Mo was going crazy last year. Like this one, I have Banks, good rep, and pass set on Mo Hurst. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But I'm excited to get back out there. I'm excited to get back out there and see what we got. But essentially, going back to how I see the starting offensive line with Mac is Trent, Banks, Mac, Brunskill, and McGlinchey. Like I would imagine that's what it looks like when they step onto the field day one. Like if that's who's available. Um, Again, it's going to be so interesting. It's going to be so interesting to see like who is in that left guard hole. Obviously, who's in the center hole, but that those two spots and then how it affects the rest of the offensive line like on Monday, that's what I'm going to be watching. Like once I'm just going to be waiting for someone to tweet it. Like what's the starting offensive line? What is the starting offensive line with the first walkthrough group? Like doesn't mean they're going to be going 5 million miles a minute. I just want to who do they put out there? Who is it? I mean, we're close. We are close to getting a little bit of clarity on the 49ers offensive line. Little bit. A little bit. So I would say if I had to have the ideal starters, same thing applies. But this is where it gets dicey. So now let's do a starting offensive line with no Mac. All right. Where do you think I put Brunskill? Where do you think I put Brunskill? Do I keep him at right guard? Did I move him to center? Did I move him to left guard? Where do you think I put Brunskill in a world where Alex Mack retires and is not with the team? I see Cap on it right away. So I put him at center. And I look at it like this. You can, but I also see an alternate universe to this. So if Alex Mack retires, there is a world where Jake Brendel becomes the center. So in my opinion, I want experience. I want someone who's done it, who's been there, who understands what it takes at the NFL level to play center. I played center. I'm very critical of my centers. I want certain things out of them, and experience you can't is so valuable at that position because defensive coordinators will throw so much crap at you and you have to always have your head on a swivel. You always have to know what they're throwing at you. You have to do a lot of things really well, sometimes that are really hard. Sometimes you have to dig out a one tech shaded to the side that you're trying to reach, and that's really hard sometimes. Again, look at Alex Mack and Kenny Clark had a beautiful battle week 3. And that was just a perfect execution of two veterans going back to back at each other. Um, So, but I want a guy at center who has starts under his belts, you know. So, although if they opt to keep Brunskill at right guard, I could see Brendel being the starter. And I think that could surprise people. I think that could be surprise like if we get it comes out across Twitter, the 49ers first starting offensive line of the years, Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jank Brendel, Daniel Brunskill. See, that's the thing. It's not going to be Mike McGlinchey in OTAs. It's not going to be Mike McGlinchey in OTAs. I just thought about that. This is probably not going to be Mike McGlinchey in OTAs. Who's it going to be? Colton. So that's why there's so many little like things with this offensive line. Like I don't think I think McGlinchey is definitely headed in the right direction in regards to rehab and his availability, but I don't necessarily think that he will be out there for OTAs. So as a result, who's going to be at right tackle? So that's going to be another interesting wrinkle. But we are more projecting towards training camp, more towards week one, starting offensive line. So we're assuming McGlinchey's going to be there at right tackle. So we don't really have to worry about our bookends, at least in my opinion. It's going to be Trent, it's going to be Mike. Not everyone's gonna love that. I'm definitely okay with that. I don't think that's a problem. Um, so the bookends, I'm not worried about. It's those three interior positions with one Brunskill who is going to kind of shift around. So with Brunskill being, he's the one starter that can either play. I imagine he's going to stay at right guard or center. But if they keep him at right guard, I imagine it's going to be Brendel with the ones. I have to imagine it's going to be Banks still with the left guard spot. But I won't be surprised either. I won't be surprised if it's Trent, figuratively, Trent Colton at left guard, Brendel, Brunskill, McGlinchey. I won't be surprised if it's like a Trent, Colton, Brunskill, Zakel at right guard, and a McGlinchey at right tackle. This dynamic to the offensive line. There's so many little variables of where they could go. Um, so that's why it's fascinating. Like that's why, like this year, out of any year, I am leaned into the offensive line. And again, I'm always leaned into the offensive line, but more so than ever because I want to figure it out. Like I want to know, like, what is our offensive line going to look like with Mac or without Mac? Again, you can see without Mac, the tidal wave like of adjustments like begin. Like with Mac, you can literally lock down center to right tackle, and really your only true probably competition is at left guard. But if Mac is gone, it just feels like all three of those interior spots are going to be up for grabs. But again, I do think Brunskill will start. It's just where will he start? So, kind of the practice squad guys, So, if I had to drop it down to 8 keepers on the offensive line, I got Trent, Banks, Mack, Brunskill, McGlinchey, Burford, Zakel, and then this is where it gets hard. This is where it gets hard. I think the 2 drafted guys from this year make it. You still have Jalen Moore, was a 5th-round draft pick. You still have Colton McKivitz, who I think is a good offensive lineman, capable offensive lineman. You have guys like Donovan West. You have guys like Poe. You have guys like School. So it's we're gonna lose some boys. Some boys are gonna get cut. They're gonna get picked up by other teams. We'll be able to bring some back around to the practice squad. The hope is we can get guys like West, Poe, School, Gutierrez, Schluter on the practice squad, and just kind of try to rock that way, because the thing with the backup offensive linemen is the 2 to 3 that you have to be able to play 2 positions. They cannot be just a tackle or a guard or a center. They have to be able to play. The center has to be able to play the guard position. The guard has to be able to play the center position. The tackle has to be able to play the guard position and the tackle position. So you have to keep someone who's versatile in those backup spots, which again changes the dynamic a little bit, because you look at guys like West, you look at guys like potentially Poe, who could be. I think there could be a role for Poe as well. Good timing. Good timing by both of you guys. Uh, Jason Poe might get picked up if cut. The dude is very athletic for his size. It'd be fascinating if they cut Hockett and stash Poe as a fullback to bide their time until inserting him to the offensive line. Great. That's exactly where I was going. So I might pull it up sometime in the coming weeks of how the 49ers utilize that motion across. I need to get like a whiteboard. I need to get like a whiteboard. But they utilized this motion uh that was extremely effective, definitely towards the second half of the year. And see if I can draw it up, like, just purely from memory. I don't even remember. I'll try. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I don't even know if this is. I'll try. I'll try. So I don't know if you guys remember kind of seeing like formations like this. And this guy was typically, we saw him as Jeff Wilson. He was kind of flanked off the line of scrimmage. In these typical formations, they had Deebo in the backfield. And so, if you guys remember, they would essentially uh, pull Wilson like this, or in this particular position, it would be Charlie Warner or sometimes George Kittle. They started really playing with this position a lot. And this was, but a lot of the time it was Jeff Wilson. And then if you guys remember, they would pull them across the formation and essentially use him like a lead blocker. Imagine Jason Poe in that role. Imagine Jason Poe in that role. Again, they weren't using Jeff Wilson to be a running back. They were using him to be a lead blocker. But, he's a running back. So, and he could block decently well. But if you take Poe and you put Poe in that position where Jeff Wilson is, and then you're bringing Poe across, you're motioning Poe across the line of scrimmage. You can use him as the lead blocker, or you can use him as misdirection and do counters off of it. But if you're using him as this motion type player, that's what it feels like he is. Like, it feels like Poe could be a specialized player for like this new kind of wrinkle that Shanahan added last year, and if you put him in that particular role, that kind of like, and I'll try to pull clips of these examples, so I can like actually show you what I'm talking about because I'm not even remembering it properly. It's right off the top of my head. Um, but they pulled Jeff Wilson across the formation, or Charlie Warner, or George Kittle, or at times Juwan Jennings, to again create manipulation pre-snap to get either safeties or linebackers to flow one direction or not. But now if you put Poe there, who is a blocker, who could be a threat as a pass catcher or a runner if they treat him like a fullback, that would be fun. That would be fun because when you look at Poe, his best attribute is his ability to pull, his ability to get on his horse, pull down the line, and rock you with the 300 pounds that follow. Low base, great leverage, the speed. That would be fun. If they could somehow figure that out, that would be phenomenal. So I don't know if he makes it day one. Uh, I don't know if he makes it day one as a offensive lineman, but if they use him as a essentially an H back, uh, so not quite a fullback, not quite a tight end, not quite a running back, kind of like an H back, and they just use him to just pull across formations and be a lead blocker. And then once they start keying on him as a lead blocker and don't then just treat him like a blocker, start hit him in the flat, that would be fun. That would be fun. Coach says, hate to be that guy. Poe's height is a liability. I got to see him in pads 100%. It's not hate. He needs the length to perform certain 100%. That's why I like him in this little H-back role. That's why I like him. Like, if you could replace what they were using Jeff Wilson for, again, Jeff Wilson is probably the same height as Jason Poe, just about 75 pounds lighter. But if you put him in that kind of H-back role and you just have him pulling all over the place, because again, if we can go back to multiple examples of them just, leaving the defensive end unblocked, you have the puller coming across the formation and just lighting up the defensive end. Again, whether it was uh when it came to lighting up, that would have been Charlie Warner in that particular situation. But I also agree with Coach. Like, we have to see it. Like, there's a reason there aren't 6'1" offensive linemen. They're very rare. You have to be very specific in your skill set and your strength. Because again, being 6'1", you're going to be a completely different body type than these other, like, again, I being around these players up close and personal, you can just see, like, I would consider myself a big human. I'm sure you would consider myself a big human, being 6'3", probably about a 285 right about now, probably, 6'3", 285. Yeah, you threw about 15 pounds on me. I'm borderline, you know, NFL offensive lineman size, but I'm that would be like at the like border of like it's kind of small, and I would be small. I would be considered a small offensive lineman, 100%. So, and I've seen the entire 49ers offensive line. I've stood 2 feet away from them and watched. I've seen them in a line in normal human clothes, like, and it's like you take a person like me, and it's like they eat like a magic mushroom, and they just like doo 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 doo. They just like they're a different size. Like, it's I don't know how to explain it. Like, again, 6'3", 285. You probably tell me, oh, you're pretty big. No, around these guys, I am tiny. Like, they're just like this doo doo, like this just different. Like, their shoulders are just a completely different. Like, Like I don't know how else to explain it, but like when you're around them, you're just like, yeah, yeah, you guys are built different. So I hear this concern 100%. I hear this concern 100% with Poe, but that's why I like him. I like him as this kind of H back role. Tell us more about your mushrooms. It's not that kind of show, my guy. It's not that kind of show. It's definitely not that kind of show. But I mean, again, overall, like I like where we're at. I like I I like where we're at with the offensive line. I think we're in a good spot. So we'll see what it becomes. And again, like I said, if I had to predict right now with Alex Mack, I feel like Banks has taken over, has to be the first to either win the job or lose the job. So, but we will find out. We will absolutely find out. And I'm excited. It's going to be one of the main things that I'm looking for, watching for with OTAs coming up on Monday. So I'm pretty excited about that. Pretty excited to see who runs out there with the offensive line. If you had to ask this question, I would imagine it's going to be Brendel. Uh, I would imagine it's going to be Brendel. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be Poe. It could be. I mean, he could be that guy. He could be the outlier. He could be that guy that, you don't really anticipate could, again, that's true concern. Just size. But I do also know guys like that are re- like insanely strong for no reason. Like they might not be the biggest, but they are strong as hell and they can hold their ground. And if you can do that, then that's all that matters. Then you can take that thought process and you can actually use it as an advantage. You already won the leverage game. So if you've already won the leverage game, you have the strength to back it up and then you have the speed. It's the same reasons why we love DJ Jones. It's the same reasons why we like uh Kalai Davis. Like the same reasons. They're not big, but they're strong, they're fast, they're explosive, and they're strong. I think I said strong twice. Dive, dip, duck, dive, and duck. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. Oh boy. But as you know, the O line competition is going to be fierce. And I can't wait. I can't wait. Will Debo show up? No, he won't. I don't think he will. I would be surprised if he did. It would be great if he did, but I don't think he will. Uh, and if I have to be honest, I wouldn't say George made me feel a ton better that like things have, simmered down. I still feel like there is a bit of a disconnect with George or not George with Debo in the front office, and I don't think that will translate into uh, Debo being there at camp. Uh, so, or at least OTAs and mandatory minicamp. So, I don't think Debo's going to be there. I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see. We will see. Justin says Jordan Elliott, homie, wrote an article for Niners Nation where he interviewed Jordan Mason's head coach and compared Mason to Marshawn Lynch. Ooh, that's a That's a comparison. That's a wild comparison. Coming from and that's Georgia Tech too. That's no slouch. That's a nice nugget. That's a nice nugget. Uh, hey, they did. George did mention that. Yeah, these taxes out here ridiculous, and especially when you get into that tax bracket, you say bye bye to half that money that you sign on the dotted line. It's going to go pay. It's going to Sacramento. It's going to Sacramento. Not just to fight that hard to get paid what you deserve, and then just to watch half of it go away because of where you live. That's hard. That's unfortunate. That might not that would maybe like if I had to be, I'm a Cali boy. I'm a Bay Area boy. But if you were paying me upwards of 20 to 30 million dollars and I had the opportunity to get paid in California or I don't know, Texas or Florida, I'm going to the other places outside of California. I'm going to collect as much money as I possibly can, and not giving it away to the state to recklessly use. I'm not like I'm gonna be honest. Like, can't do that. Like, I'm not. This is a tough place to live, man. It is a tough place to live when it comes to uh, cost of living. Like, what did I pay yesterday to put gas into my tank? Like over $6. Like over $6 a freaking gallon. Like, what are we doing here? Like, unbelievable, unbelievable. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. I wouldn't want to do that either. And especially if you're not going to like give me a cushion to like make up for that because again, hey, we hear about it, inflation, all that stuff. Uh what I think I saw an article from like Microsoft is like doubling uh like employees like salary to like be able to uh, afford the cost of living now and all that kind of stuff. It was crazy. So I can totally sympathize with Debo in that regard. So, but we'll find out, man. We will find out what's going on with Debo. Again, I don't think Debo shows up. I don't think Debo shows up to camp, not camp to OTAs and mandatory mini camp. Uh, they're still at it. Like I think, again, we don't talk about it every day anymore. So people forget. And I think the fact that he followed the 49ers again, why social media is a marketing tool, why you have to understand the levers that you pull with social media. Um, he opened the floodgates by unfollowing the San Francisco 49ers, and he stopped the floodgates by following the 49ers. That was it. It's that simple. Like it's that simple of either getting your name dragged through the mud or not. Like it's that simple. So he obviously learned that. And so the fact that he refollowed them, that it all goes away. So we don't talk about it anymore, but doesn't mean doesn't mean you know that it's not an issue. And you know what we never talk about? Do you know what we never talk about? We never talk about Nick Bosa. We never talk about Nick Bosa and him getting paid. You notice that? We don't ever mention. Well, is Nick Bosa gonna be at OTAs? Is Nick Bosa gonna be at minicamp? Is he gonna step on that field? I wouldn't, to be honest. Like, because I think Bosa's earned the big time contract, just as not that Debo hasn't either. Um, Obviously, Bosa has the injury kind of right in the middle of his first 3 years, but he showed it as a rookie, and then he showed it in his third year, and admittedly, not even at 100%. So Bosa, and he plays a more premium position. So Nick Bosa is likely going to get. I would imagine he's going to get paid before training camp because he's outplayed his rookie deal. Um, of course, they don't have to pay him, but they should. And they should just get it. They should just get it over with now, especially with the market continuing to rise. There are going to be other DNs that come through next year that are going to reset the market. Why not reset the market now? Get ahead of it. Again, anything that you spend now, you don't have to really affect the cap this year. You can push it out over multiple years. Um, but it does feel like we don't talk about it, but he should be getting paid, I would imagine, before training camp. So we'll see what happens. So there's still two guys that need to get paid. um we still don't know what's going on with Alex Mack, so a lot of questions. So I would say this though, like, don't be shocked. Like, I would imagine Bosa's going to show up to OTAs and minicamp, but also don't be surprised if he doesn't. And if he doesn't, we know why. It's not like we have to go into panic mode. Just like the same thing applies. Like, don't step on the field where you could potentially get hurt, and, you know, put your potential future earnings, especially if you are working through a contract extension, just don't put yourself in harm's way. That's You just don't want to do that. So again, if we get to OTAs on Monday and we're getting reports like, oh, no Nick Bosa in the building, like, it's not going to be like, oh my god, we just got through with Debo and the Jimmy drama, now we got Bosa drama. No, it's like, I would understand it or get it. I get why Bosa wouldn't show up. I imagine he does because he feels like that kind of guy. Um, where he would just, because you look at George. George showed up. George showed up in the middle of a contract negotiation. He showed up. He he still was a leader. He still went through all the practices, all the things. Um, during a very difficult negotiation. Ultimately, got the deal that he wanted. Not that it was easy, but he still showed up amidst that and still proved to be a leader and do all those things. I could imagine Bosa going that route a little bit more. But again, just like we won't be surprised if Debo doesn't show up, I won't be surprised if Bosa doesn't show up. So just something to keep in mind, as we go into Monday. Again, we don't talk about Bosa. Like, it just doesn't get brought up. I don't know if I've ever really talked about Bosa more than one or two times, like this entire offseason, because I think we all just think that it's going to get done. Like, we all just assume that he's going to get paid and get that money, and so we don't stress about it. Where we stressed plenty about Debo, we, you know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I am very excited to be able to talk about some football. Hopefully we get some good clips, some good nuggets. Again, trying to see what the starting units look like. Again, we're going to take it with a grain of salt for sure. Um, but it will be interesting again. Who's going to be lining up at center? Who's going to be lining up at left guard? Uh, what other spot? Like maybe what the running back rotation looks like. Who's going to be the starting defensive end? Is it going to be Drake Jackson? Is it going to be like a Samson Ebukam? Who's going to be that? What's the starting cornerback group look like? Is it going to be Emmanuel Mosley and Ward? Is it going to be Emmanuel Mosley and Verrett? Is it going to be Charvarius and Verrett? Like, so who's going to be nickel? Who's going to be safeties? Like, so there's a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of stuff to look at from that kind of perspective. So we'll be able to talk about that. So I'm excited to get into that next week. So we should have OTAs next week. But shout out everyone again for continuing to vibe with us throughout the off season. We're so close. We are so close to getting to real football. And again, Monday is just one step closer to that realization that we are almost there and we've almost made it. And again, I thank all of you guys for continuing to support the channel, continuing to, like the videos, follow, whatever, engage with the content. Means a ton, and we're going to keep trying to grow, and we're going to keep trying to bring better content, more original content, and keep moving in that direction. So again, thank you guys as always for your support. The SDS, the vibes, legendary. The steak was phenomenal, Hendrix. Melted in my mouth. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So we'll be back. We'll be back Monday to talk about what we get out of OTAs and what we get from day one. We'll talk about it all. So excited. You guys have a fantastic weekend. I won't be on live unless anything crazy pops off. But again, that's why I always have that notification bell on. So if something crazy does pop off, we're going to hop on live. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. We're going to do all that stuff. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit the sub button as you should already be. And I will see you guys on Monday. You guys have a phenomenal weekend.